Good morning, everybody. This is John Scarborough. I had a question sent to me in an email recently asking about more about these containers and how I tied them down to my shop when I got ready to build this shop. So I'm going to do a little video trying to show a little bit better of an answer. The question came in from I'm gonna butcher this name, but it was Damon Seipert, I think it was. So Damon, I really appreciate the question, and I also very much apologize if I'm butchering your name. I'm just not real good with names. But I'm going to try to do the video as best I can, and I really appreciate the question because I think this is something that I probably haven't done as good of a job as I should in explaining all of the really detailed parts with everything with this shop. But I've had a lot of comments, a lot of different people wanting to know more about how we did this shop. I kind of came up with how to do this shop. For anybody that doesn't know the background, I came up with how to do it in my mind when I lived in the old, on my old place. I had a Quonset shop. So I really had a lot of chance to think about all the stuff that I wanted in this shop. Now y'all are gonna have to forgive me for the mess back here. It is the back of our place, so we do, you know, it's where stuff ends up. But also we've got about 3 different projects going on in our shop right now. When you pay other people to come in and work for you sometimes, then what ends up happening to your shop, it is a lot worse than when it's just you. And I'm already not a perfectly clean person. I'm better than most, but I'm not perfectly clean. But then when you get 3 different projects from a couple different people, then you really start to, you know, stuff starts to get messy. So y'all forgive me for that. But we're gonna get right into this. This right here, I wanna show you how all of this is tied down. This is the footing. You can still see a lot of the exposed footing. I left a lot of it exposed on the outside. Now the footing may be a little oversized. Some people tell me that it was overkill, and maybe it was. There are some things that you could do different than this, but I'm sorry, almost dropped my camera, everybody. There really was no reason not to do it this way, you know, because what you could have done, and if it wasn't me, I paid somebody to put these footings down. If I went back and did it, I'd probably just go ahead and do the footings myself. But if I did it myself, the one thing I could do differently, and it would save you a little money on concrete, is I would probably make a square footing about this big. Because, I mean, all of that extra concrete, there's no real reason for it. But I put it there, I went ahead and had that done, and I had 3 of these. So you're not going to be able to see it in here because it's so built up with stuff and it needs to be weeded and everything else. But you've got a square point right here. 4 of these square points on the bottom side. And then the middle doesn't have anything. There's no real anchor there. But I put one of these in the middle, and your footing has to be up a little bit higher in the middle, because if you look right here, you got about a 1/2 inch difference there. Oh, you're not gonna be able to see that. The lighting is terrible there, guys. There's a gap there. So that's how it's gonna be on that middle footing down in the middle over there. And I can show you here in just a second. That footing is a little bit different. So there's going to be a gap there. So you have to build that up. You either have to bring the footing up, which is what I told the people to do when I hired them, but they did not do it. So what you have to do is put spacers under there and bring it up to it. But I feel like that was important to put that footing there, to actually add that extra space on that, and to put a 3rd footing there, just simply because you're bearing a load. These things were meant to be stacked together, but they were meant to carry the load down each corner, okay? But you can see here, we've put trusses all the way down, and we're bearing load all the way across there. They weren't necessarily, even though they're pretty strong at it, they weren't necessarily designed for all of that. So depending on the load, I'm not an engineer, and I'm not gonna tell you how to do it, but depending on the load that you're placing on it, you may want to beef up some things here and there, okay? Because I have seen some guys that have built container houses. They cut out too much all at one time, and they collapsed. They collapsed in on them. So I've never had that issue, but I didn't cut out a whole bunch of it. So just, you know, pay attention, make sure you're thinking about what you're doing. But I really like the idea of throwing that 3rd one third support in the ground. So let's talk a little bit about what I did to get these in here. We went and rented a 10-inch trencher, okay, and we trenched a 10-inch groove as deep as we could go. It ended up being about 4 foot in the ground, okay. And then I made these plates. These plates are 8-inch, they're 8-inch by 8-inch plates, all right. And then I welded a rod to the very bottom of that plate and went, I think it was about 3.5 foot. So I didn't go all the way to the dirt, because you don't want to touch that rod to the dirt when you're putting it in the concrete, because it can start to get rust. They say that rust can travel up it and eventually rust it out. I don't know a lot about that, but I just try to keep it from ever touching the dirt if possible. And then I took and welded 4 hooks. So they're like little J hooks, and they're welded to each corner, and they went down, I think they went down about 1 foot, and they had a hook in them. So we welded all 4 of those. I actually had somebody helping me, young lady. She's learning to do some welding. She did very good job. So I really appreciated that. She came out and helped for a little bit. But we got that welded up. It was several of these plates. I mean, we did, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we did 12 of these for this whole building by the time we were done. This plate is not necessarily to have it this big. You could have it this big and have it all the way up underneath there. All it would have to be is right here at the edge. This is another thing that those people that I hired to do this, they really did a lot of things here that weren't great. There's nothing wrong with it. It works great. But, I mean, ideally, they were supposed to be right here at the edge on this. That was kind of what they were told to do, and they never did do it. So, like I said, I wouldn't hire anybody. I wouldn't have hired them to do it again, because I could have done a better job. But overall, it's fine. And I would suggest doing a plate that is very large. That gives you so much movement, so much freedom of movement, because you don't need a lot of weld on this. Now, y'all can see here, I've only got 1 tack right here. I promise I have more welds in other places. This one right here, I'm looking at it, I actually forgot to put any more weld on that. I do need to get some more weld. Personally, I would put a good weld on it. Now, the reason for going that far down in the ground is so that you do have upward pull on it. This container right here, this is where we go when we get a tornado coming in here, because I feel like that these containers would still be here even if this shop got blown away, from a tornado. I should probably get it welded on better than that if I do that. Now, I will tell y'all, anybody that doesn't know, I've said it in other videos, these containers are made of Cor-Ten steel. So that means they have a certain amount of copper in the steel to help slow down the rusting process that comes from being on the ocean, okay? So when you're welding them, they weld a little bit different, and you definitely want to do a decent type of weld. What me and my brother found after doing some research on it and then welding on it a lot ourselves, I had my brother out here helping me with some of this, we found that typically just putting on a mix of weld seemed to be a good, we put 70-18 everywhere that needed it for sure, but we also liked to put a good mix. So the 80-10 is just a higher tensile strength, but it's also a slightly harder rod. And we did use that, but we also found just putting some 70-18 in different places really seemed to be a good rod. And that matched up with the research that we were doing as well. But just remember that. Just put you some 70-18 anywhere that you really, really need it. You need it to be strong. You just don't want to mess up on this. Don't come out here and weld this with 60-11, okay? I don't have anything against 60-11, but it doesn't need to be on this by itself. If you want to put you a 60-11 root in there, go ahead and then put you a 70-18 pass over. That would be easier. Personally, I would put me a 60-10 root in there, because 60-10 has deeper penetration than the 60-11. That's one reason why the 60-11 shines so good, is because you can weld on really rusty areas and not blow through, and that's because it doesn't penetrate quite as well as 60-10. Okay, it's just a different rod. It has a different purpose. So if you're really trying to get a good root, get you a good 60-10, maybe a 5P plus, something like that. It doesn't have to be, just a 60-10. Get your root in there. You know, if you really wanted to get fancy, you could go over top of it with an 80-10, but only if you're good at welding that. If not, don't worry about it. Come back and put you a good 70-18 weld. Personally, I would suggest putting a double stacked, like a double bead. You can see both your beads there. Get a good weld on there. I'm gonna actually come back and weld this now that I see that. I don't know how in the world I missed that. But like I said, I would definitely, you probably only need that full step right there. But I went ahead and put this full step here because I wasn't sure if I was going to end up needing some middle support. I just didn't know for sure. Now that I've done this, I feel perfectly confident with only having those 4 ends over there. I do not feel like that it needs all that extra concrete. That was a lot of extra concrete, a lot of extra work. There was just no need in it. Honestly, I think the people that did it just wanted to have more reason to make more money. That's why they suggested doing it that way. But definitely just putting 4 corners in there I think would work very well. You see here where we made it up to the concrete. I want to tell you this. Don't go welding too much and tying off. You don't want to tie this. These are 2 different slabs because this right here was already dry. This pier right here was completely formed and dried before this concrete was ever put on there. So you're not trying to mate these 2 concretes together. You kind of want them to be able to float independently to keep them from cracking. I mean, you still got to have all your rebar and everything else in your pad, and you got to do things just right there. Look up what you need to if you're getting somebody else to pour it for you, all like that. But my point that I'm trying to make is I've had some people ask me, how do you get these 2 separate concrete pads to tie in together? That's not what you're trying to do. You're basically just, this is an independent of that right there, okay? That's what you're doing. You're tying everything in with your metal, with your welding and all like that. You're not trying to tie your stone in, okay? Stone, it's 2 separate pieces of stone, okay? So just keep that in mind. But this all made it up great. I mean, it all did quite well. I had no real issues with it. I have had some people ask me, well, if you get a lot of rainwater in there, are you going to start to get a lot of rust? I don't know. It is possible. I could have come out here, taken that wall, come all the way out to the edge, covered that whole ledge. I actually left the exposed ledge intentionally. That's a video for a different day. I'm not going to go into why. But I don't get a lot of water unless I get blowing rain because I came out almost 4 foot overhang on my walls. I believe in having a lot of exterior coverage if you can afford it, simply because the farther you can get the water from your building, the better off you are. And I really like it because I can come out of this door right here, okay, and I can walk all the way over to there if I don't have stuff piled out here. Like I said, I'm doing a lot of work right now, guys, just forgive me. And I can walk all the way underneath there and go straight to that other container and go straight in. I don't have to because I got other ways in and out, but that's my point, is even in the pouring rain, unless it's blowing rain, I can actually walk all the way over there and never get wet doing it. So that's pretty nice. That gives you an idea of how far the water stays off the building. Now, you do get some occasional blowing rain and things like that, like we had a tornado come through the other day. But I really hope that answered y'all's questions. I hope that I explained that well enough. If y'all have any more questions on this, please give me the questions. I really appreciate the questions. I actually do read every comment that's in there. I read every email that's in there. I cannot always reply back. There's just not enough time, and honestly, I just don't make enough money off my YouTube channel. I wish it was more popular. I wish it was, but there just aren't a lot of people that need this type of content. So because of that, I don't make as much money as some people do. But I love putting out the content. I love sharing it. I love helping it, and I love the education that I get back from all of you guys. So, but I hope that helps a lot. Like I said, I would definitely most of these I have welded down. I did put on a full weld, so make sure you get a good weld. I would definitely suggest having a large enough metal pad there to give you some flexibility, because you can see I had 2 inches of flexibility and I was still able to get that welded on very well. Definitely would suggest doing that for sure. After that, I mean, some people do tell me that I do need to cover all this in to keep skunks and stuff from getting under there. I haven't had that problem, but I probably should get that covered in and take care of that. Other than that, I haven't had a whole lot of issues. The reason I've still got it open, guys, is because these things do have wooden floors, and I like to be able to have airflow. My brother actually fenced it off. He has a type of net wire or something underneath there. I may do that. I just like being able to get the airflow underneath there to keep all of that dry, because I don't know. Maybe I'm just OCD. I don't know. I just hate the idea of too much moisture getting under there, coming up from the ground, and it not being able to stay dry. So y'all tell me what you think about that. I'd love to hear it. Tell me if you have any more questions on this. I'm going to sign off. Thank y'all, guys, and thank you very much for the question.